The vulnerable population that this program aims to support is the parents of children with developmental disabilities who deal with caregiver stress and burnout. Caregivers often neglect their own health needs, psychosocial well-being, and spiritual needs as well. Experiencing a decline in physical health has often led to a decrease in social relationships and social inclusion, and many caregivers experience mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety. When considering the demographics of this population, the CDC shows that over half of caregivers have given assistance for the past 24 months or more. Moreover, 1 in 3 caregivers give care for 20 hours a week or more. 1 in 4 caregivers are women compared to 1 in 5 men who are caregivers. And lastly, the Family Caregiver Alliance found that about 43.5 million caregivers provide unpaid care to children in the last 12 months. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, in 2019, 40% of caregivers reported having 2 or more chronic diseases, 37% reported having insufficient sleep, and 17.5% reported experiencing 14 or more physically unhealthy days within the past month. When considering environmental challenges for caretakers of children with developmental disabilities, they may not be aware of any community resources such as respite care or transportation services, and they may be providing transportation for their child to and from their doctor's appointments, their school days, and their extracurricular activities. Research has shown that caregivers who travel long distances are more likely to experience emotional distress and also feel like they have a prolonged period of time where they do not have personal time and space.
Limitations to access. Caregivers often neglect their own personal health, leading to burnout and also potential chronic illnesses and challenges with mental health. Because they are not seeking proper access to health care, this population is vulnerable to experiencing increased levels of stress and ultimately burnout if unaddressed. Often their responsibilities are so extensive that they are unable to complete their necessary ADLs. Moreover, their social lives may be affected and they may have a decreased social life and participation in leisure activities because they are busy caring for the child. These individuals might not have access to resources such as counseling to help with these challenges. These limiting factors can all lead to diminished quality of life for the caretakers. There are many disparities that caregivers dealing with burnout experience, such as more stress than non-caregivers, more women than men are caregivers, financial disparities, increased mortality rate than non-caregivers, decreased overall health and well-being, and limited opportunities for self-care. There are also modifiable risk factors that caregivers can change through their own actions, such as stress management, time management, self-care routines, physical activity, proper sleep schedules, respite care, seeking help from friends, family members, community members, or health professionals, and seeking occupational therapy services.
Aspects of wellness. When caregivers have more time available, they will have increased opportunities to access all dimensions of wellness, including social, emotional, occupational, intellectual, and physical. This program intends to address self-care and leisure that may be diminished due to the role as a caregiver. It aims to facilitate engagement in activities that promote stress relief. Moreover, their social lives may be affected and they may have a decreased social life. These contributing factors can all lead to a diminished quality of life for the caretakers. Addressing this population's needs will also directly influence and affect the child with a disability being cared for. The daily interactions, communication skills, and interpersonal relationships will directly be experienced by the child and benefit the child's mental health and overall quality of life.
When considering the Healthy People 2020 goals, this program would be addressing the overarching goal that states that we will promote quality of life, healthy development, and healthy behaviors across all life stages. This is because we are considering both the client, which is the caretaker, as well as the child that is under care of them. Moreover, 2 other sub goals for the Healthy People 2020 states that we will increase the proportion of adults who self-report good or better physical health, as well as we will increase the proportion of adults who will self-report good or better mental health. So overall, our program will be addressing healthy development across the life stages and even more so with physical and mental health. When considering barriers to wellness and quality of life for this population, research has found that overall they experience diminished time. Having a decreased amount of time for themselves because they spend so much time taking care of the child can cause them to have less time to engage in self-care activities, and they may experience burnout and a decreased social life and opportunities for leisure. Also, they may experience decreased sleep or develop unhealthy sleep routines. And lastly, they may develop mental health conditions such as depression and panic disorder.
Caregivers often take on a lot of responsibility when taking care of family members, which can sometimes be called burden of care. Burden of care often contributes to family members delaying their own personal needs. Additionally, home-based therapy can be beneficial for this population as the caregiver will be relieved of commuting to the center. The caregiver can be supported in the home, which allows the occupational therapist the opportunity to address the family's habits, roles, and routines in the home environment to decrease potential stress felt by the caregiver. Additionally, a study shows that children with developmental disabilities who received home-based therapy benefited the most from services in the home, as family members had the opportunity to be involved in therapy. Having an OT come to the home could potentially decrease the stress and burnout that a caregiver might feel, while also benefiting the well-being of the child.
An existing program is the Family Caregiver Alliance. It has a local and online support group. The funding is corporate and foundation grants, the state of California, area agencies on aging, program participants, and donations from those who have benefited from the services. Our program is different because it includes techniques to improve stress management through healthy sleep routines. For our program development, we base it off of 5 areas. First, social. Caregivers often lack support networks, as well as time to attend. Social support networks diminish over time for caregivers and can eventually lead to isolation. As for behavioral, parents of children with developmental disabilities reported experiencing poor quality of sleep due to the parental stress experienced. For environmental, there are many state and national resources for caregiver support, however none focus directly on sleep routines. For educational, exposing students to caregiving topics can help them understand how caregiving impacts all parts of the life cycle. Lastly, for ecological, predisposition to anxiety or depression, which could affect sleeping patterns and negative coping mechanisms. As mentioned previously, our program will follow the Healthy People 2020 goal of promoting quality of life, healthy development, and healthy behaviors across all life stages. Through positive sleep habits, individualized coping mechanisms, facilitating healthy morning and bedtime routines, and techniques to recognize, monitor, and correct negative sleep patterns. The target of our intervention is to improve the amount and quality of sleep for caregivers to help decrease the stress related to burnout. Our intervention objectives are to educate participants in effective sleep routines and techniques, and also to collaborate with participants and recommend strategies that are functional and appropriate for each individual. For the outline of our program, the program sessions would include education about keeping a sleep diary, about coping strategies that can be used to wind down and prepare for sleep, evaluations of sleeping environment, and interventions as online webinars where they may tune in to participate at their convenience, or in-person sessions that participants can also attend. According to the OTPF, create promote would be new routines, establish restore would be sleeping habits, prevention would be chronic illness and burnout, and modify would be sleeping routines.
The social ecological model of planning focuses on the interaction of an individual with his or her environment. This model outlines the various physical, social, economic, and cultural aspects of the environment that may influence the individual's interaction with it. There is not as great of a focus on the individual because the ideology behind the social ecological model is that there are different outcomes dependent on the environment that is unique to the individual. This model does consider individual factors such as genetics, behaviors, and knowledge. For operationalizing the planning model, environmental factors include being at the caregiver's home and access to the state and national resources for caregiver support. Individually, caregivers of all ages and genders are included, consideration of depression, anxiety, sleep difficulties, or other chronic diseases, and the experience that the caregiver has. A multi-sectoral approach will be employed in this program by partnerships with community members and healthcare professionals because it broadens access to opportunities and allows for the inclusion of multiple professions, including psychologists and sleep therapists. Psychologists will provide support and advice to the participants for topics that are within their scope of practice, which will support OT in this program. Sleep therapists will also provide useful information about sleep in this program. How will people gain access? As caregivers often overlook their own health needs, the program will be provided to pediatricians to screen for and refer caregivers who appear overwhelmed or burned out. Pediatricians are the clinicians that may have the most contact with this population. How is it marketed? Within childhood and adolescent-based therapies, through word of mouth in the autism community, as the Center for Disease Control and Prevention authorizes this as an accurate way to spread information about different programs, and through an online forum called the Caregiver Space, where articles and other helpful resources may be posted and reviewed. Program development and implementation. The ideal location for this program is online through a webinar either live or recorded. Frequency and duration is 1 hour per week in a 12-week program, and intensity is designed to provide relief for burnout and to be easily accessible. A definition from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention of caregivers is informal caregivers provide regular care or assistance to a friend or family member who has a health problem or disability. Inclusion criteria is a caregiver that does match this definition. Exclusion criteria is a caregiver that does not match this definition. Session plan. A session plan for our program is as follows: an introduction outlining the benefits of sleep with a warm-up and icebreaker. Intervention is sleep techniques and healthy sleep routines for a good, restful night of sleep. These may include breathing techniques, mindfulness, and sleep techniques. Finally, a cool down, which is a take-home sleep diary and journal. To reflect about the intervention, how did you feel? Can you implement into your routine?
2 assessments will measure participant satisfaction and self-perceived gain from this program. The General Self-Efficacy Scale assesses the extent to how individuals believe they can achieve their goals, despite the burnout they might feel. It's a self-report measure and provides information about how confident the caregivers are of their own abilities after going through the program. It is important to assess self-efficacy, as it is important to understand how the caregiver feels about his or her own ability to care for the child. Also, increased self-efficacy as measured by the scale can contribute to increased confidence and decreased feelings of burnout for this population. The quality of life scale will also be used to evaluate caregivers' perceived quality of life after participating in the sleep routine program. It provides qualitative descriptions from the client's perspectives about how they feel their quality of life has shifted since beginning the program. Impact and outcome evaluations would reveal after 3 months caregiver reports of implementing the suggested tactics into their nightly sleep routines, gaining a longer and more restful sleep each night, experiencing less stress, and having more energy in the day to take care of their child. Caregivers would also report increased participation in leisure activities, less feelings of burnout, greater self-efficacy and confidence for taking care of the child, and overall increased quality of life.
Summary. Sleep promotes and facilitates the following aspects of health: physical, get sick less often; weight management, lower risk of chronic conditions; emotional, reduced emotional reactivity; self-regulation, reduced fatigue; spiritual, calmness, insight into feelings and emotions, clear headspace for spiritual well-being; functional, caregiver knowledge translated to child. The child implements healthy sleep-related strategies; intellectual, clear cognitive functioning; and overall wellness.
All in all, we enjoyed learning about our vulnerable population, and we were surprised by the lack of research and programs in place.